Hello, we are back in A Vat of Acid. And we have another story for you today. We're going to be talking about Will Chaser. Let's see, what is he? What is he, Danny? What is Will Chaser in his Twilight?
All right, so in the game of Twilight of Balance, there's a couple things we talked about last time. We talked about the factions, or some of the main factions that would be going on, and mainly we touched upon the Imperial Knights. The Imperial Knights are pretty awesome, but they're just designed to basically be the antagonists of the game. They're characters you're going to run into and have issues with, because you, as a young Force user, you are a Darksider, and you have criminal intent. You're out to do what you can for yourself.
And the Imperial Knights do not like Darksiders.
Right, yeah, they're not about that life. They're about law and order, and you're not about law and order as your character here.
They saw how the dark side failed the Empire to begin with.
Exactly. So, but there's always a balance in the Force, and especially since what Anakin did as the Chosen One was supposed to create a balance. I want to kind of show this this time where during this power vacuum, there's this moment where two new factions arise as these sort of inverses of your usual dark and light, and one of the factions is the Knights, and the other are the Dark Acolytes. Which there was a couple things I said in the previous video that I realized kind of sounded a little confusing. One of the things was that when I first started talking about the Imperial Knights, I first mentioned that they were Vader's personal bodyguard, and that was kind of how I started getting into things. And by the end of it, I think I had kind of made the distinction that what I meant to say was that they were the Emperor's personal bodyguard originally. But that was just one thing I had kind of mixed up earlier. Another thing was you had asked me if it was possible to join the Imperial Knights.
Yes.
And I had kind of said, well, yeah, that would actually be a game over for your character. But I don't know. There could be, depending on what the programmer can do and what sort of missions they want to jump on, and how much time and effort and how much of a baby somebody wants to make this, as far as their project. I guess there could be a possibility that you could do sort of a mission where you could maybe infiltrate them and become what they would call maybe like a squire for what they would call their Padawans. If you're a Dark Acolyte and you just join, you're called an initiate, and the masters of the Dark Acolytes are called assassins, whereas the Imperial Knights, they're called knights once they go through their final test of purifying their lightsaber. But before that, they're trained as squires. And I guess, like I said, there could be the possibility you might be able to kind of go in and infiltrate, do sort of an infiltration type mission.
Classic spy mission.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be possibly a cool spy thing, because in the game there's piracy, spying, bounty hunting, and then there's the Sith assassin option, or not a Sith, but there's the assassin options also. But no matter what you do, you're a Darksider, but you have to be kind of a secret Force user.
How far could you potentially go through joining them as a spy? Would it be like a quick, one day mission, or could you join them for a period of time and even perform missions for them as a squire, as like a long drawn out, almost extension to part of the story?
I don't know. See, that's what I'm saying. For me, I was just kind of I didn't really have anything thought out in that direction, because I was just you don't really get to join them. If you join them, it's almost like you're I guess I just succeed to the power of the light side and follow the light now instead, because you kind of have to do that to join them. But
I'm just considering the fact that yes, there will be some light side abilities that your characters just won't be able to perform because of the fact that he is inherently dark side. But there could still be a lot you could learn from that faction, especially considering that they used to be the Emperor's personal guard. Like, they probably are the most experienced Force users in the galaxy. I'm sure there's a lot they could teach you.
Right. I also kind of have the. I also kind of have the idea that some of the crew members that you can take on, because a big part of the game is that you're gonna have a little ship, and maybe even have like a little fighter ship that you can attach to it, and but in any case, you're gonna have a little ship and a little bit of a crew, but it's up to you how many people you're gonna have in your crew. It might be up to it might be your choice to be more the type of guy that goes with droids, and maybe I'm thinking really heavily towards like pet or like steed type creatures that you can have, because Star Wars has such a great menagerie of all kinds of great alien creatures that you can use for like just the like on Utapau, those great lizard creatures that you see Obi-Wan riding, the Powans as they call them. They actually train those creatures, but there's just and then there's things classically like the Tauntauns and the Dewbacks on Tatooine. But,
so you could potentially have two or three different crew members, along with maybe, what do you think, 2 droids, or just 1 droid maximum and then 1 pet?
Well, the idea is to keep it limited so that whenever you go and do a mission, there's a minimal amount of other factors that you have going on, and you can sort of quarterback a mission with as few players as you can manage on the field, so that you do something really stealth but coordinated at the same time.
Yeah.
Because you're doing things like, well, assassinations, or maybe kidnappings, or just in general, like, hey, just make sure that this spice never gets delivered to this guy. I don't care if you take them out at the source. I don't care if you just steal the spice from them in mid-flight. I don't care if you shoot their plane out of the sky. I don't care if you wait until they get there and make sure the deal goes sour. Just
so
one way or another,
this world to be
but
so
it's up
detailed,
to strategize. Yeah.
so detailed and thought out that there could be multiple different ways of completing a mission.
Right. So it's up to you to quarterback a small team into like how you want to do things. So I'm thinking along those lines that I also want to make it to where once you find a cool crew member, because there's several aliens that I felt like didn't necessarily fit the great stereotype of this cool Dark Acolyte assassin type character that your character has the potential to become. But there are some other cool races that I just didn't feel like fit that archetype necessarily, but would still be fun to play. Like, for instance, the Dug, the race that Sebulba was. That'd be a really neat character to kind of run around and play in this world. But I just didn't really feel a Dug as this sort of
ambitious Force user,
extremely dangerous Force user assassin. Because Dugs are more like they're more like thugs. I think that's probably why their name sounds like that. But in any case. So a Dug would be one of these characters that you can get as just like a crew member.
Yeah, that's funny. I always thought that Dugs were called dogs because they looked like dogs.
Well, that is also true. That's actually
They're
very
like
true.
A dog thug.
In fact, there's an episode
Dug.
of the Clone Wars where they go to the Dug planet. It's the Zilla Wars, and one of the Dugs that they talk to, his title is Doge. Like
Doge?
D-O-G-E.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Dude, George Lucas was the... George Lucas. George Locust.
George Locust.
George Lucas. New memes before memes were a thing, dude.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Somehow I feel like it wasn't an accident. The Doge. But in any case... so where was I getting at? Oh, okay. So we're still kind of like going on in this whole like, is it possible to join the Imperial Knights? No, it's not. But maybe as like a spy mission, you could as one of your other crew members, because I do want it to be possible to just play as one of your other crew members as you as you go through missions. You know, you can be like, oh, you know, for this part of the mission, I actually want to go and play as the dog and go and actually, you know, as me, the player, I want to go and actually beat up these guards or whatever. Yeah. Ah.
Yeah, that was good.
So.
Excuse us.
So, because these other playable characters are going to be actually you know, they're going to have their own little backstories, and they're going to be almost like they're going to have their own backstories, so they're going to have their own little place in that world. So whenever you play them, I don't know. I guess I'm just getting at the idea that, like, you know, you can send them out on a long-term mission possibly, and they can do something like that, and then you can just switch to at any time. You know, maybe it's just like, oh, my part of the mission is I'm supposed to just wait in the spaceship for a little while or whatever. But you can just go down and just play as the guy that, you know, is part of your crew, but he's down there doing this, like, little theft on the planet or something, and you just don't want to be seen, you know.
Oh, dude. What if you could make this game to almost where the character that you play as almost acts as Hugo the Mask did in his lifetime, where he basically just found all these different people in all these different spots and figured out how he could manipulate them in order to...
Well, yeah.
Like, you could find a person in every town that you could manipulate to start making you money, or...
Your crew is like that.
Working for you.
For instance, well, that was actually one of the other things I was wanting to clear up. Okay, before we go on. So, to clarify, no, you can't really join the Imperial Knights. It's not in your character's nature. Your main character is a Darksider for sure. He doesn't want to have any part with them. It's natural for him to fight them. Just as it's natural for the Dark Acolytes to fight them. But in any case...
What a shame.
But in any case, I do like the idea of maybe sending one of your crew members to infiltrate them. And if you do send one of your crew members to infiltrate them, then yeah, for sure. Then I like the idea of you being able to go and, you know, and play as that character as they go through their initiation rites and stuff like that, and as they fight and become an Imperial Knight, and then you could have an inside guy, because the game does have spy stuff.
So you can switch out.
I like that.
When you have a crew working on a mission with you, can you switch out consciousness? So you're playing your main character, but then you switch out, and now you're playing the character of your crew member.
Mm-hmm.
So you could potentially play as every character in the choosable playing screen. Like, which character you want to choose?
I've got about 20 different little characters that I've picked out to be like you know, I picked out what their race is and what their little backstory is, and basically that's the whole backbone of the game. Is these characters that have their own little story that are going to be malleable as far as the main stories of the world. Because those characters, every one of these, like, say, 20 characters, they have the potential to either keep doing what they're doing in the world, or join your crew, or get killed by you. Or get killed at whatever point that they are a part of your crew. You know what I mean? So if they join your crew, they might, you know, whenever you run into another certain villain, you know, quote unquote villain in the game, who might just be another actual playable character, but you don't know yet. You might not know which characters are playable or not, depending on how you deal with them. It might, you know, become clear at a certain point. But in any case, I don't know. It'll have to be someone with a real knack for designing a web of stories, because it's gonna have to be about 20 stories that are all sort of interchangeable in how those characters work in the bigger world.
Well, the teams that they have working at LucasArts, I'm sure, can handle it.
Yeah.
Or even the teams that worked on Mass Effect. Because if the teams that worked on Knights of the Old Republic and Mass Effect got together... No, wait. I'm sorry. They were the same teams. Mass Effect, if you're out there, hear us now. What was I saying? So yeah, it's awesome that you get to play as every character at the choosing screen, despite not having to choose that character as your main character. You still get to
Yeah.
play as the full range, but also when you have each character as a part of your crew, you start to learn a little bit of their backstory.
Yeah.
But you can never learn the whole thing without playing as that character as well, maybe.
Right. Exactly.
Which will cause you to want to play the game over and over and
Exactly.
over
That'll
again.
give the game a lot of playability. But like for instance, like I was mentioning the Doug. That's like what Sebulba's race is. If you like the Doug race, he's kind of the only option. But there's going to be one Doug character who's got like his own little story in the game, and if you dig that character, then yes, no matter what character you pick at the beginning of the game, you could, whenever you run into that character in the storyline, you can recruit him, and he can be part of your crew, and you can play it. You could play mostly as him if you really like playing that character that bad, you know. You could just set it up to where he's your main muscle of every mission, and just play as him mostly if you really feel like it. But that's kind of the direction I want to go with the game is, you know, your main character is a very shadowy character. They've got a small crew, a few loyal dudes, you know, and maybe some droids and some animals, perhaps, depending on how you want to shuffle up your crew and how much room your ship has, also. But another thing I was a little bit unclear on, I realized, was at the end of our talk last time. I was talking about how I wanted the game to kind of start with you getting sort of you get found by a droid, and I actually was kind of looking into the old some of the old stuff about the Clone Wars and the battle droids and some of the tech from before the Galactic Empire, and I really like the idea of the buzz droid, or not buzz droids, but they were called the vulture droids, but they were like they were basically fighter planes, essentially, like comparable to TIE fighters or X-wings, but they had their own fighters in the Phantom Menace and the Clone Wars movies and the prequel movies. But there were these vulture droids that were super cool, and they could like walk around on the planet, and they had an on ground mode that they could go into, but then they also could just go up and fly and perform as any other fighter. Well, there are some characters that they talked about having this knack for collecting old war memorabilia, like, and they collected stuff from the Clone Wars. Like the Clone Wars was like this, like almost like fancy wars, old war buffs in that world.
Yeah, like all those guys who collect World War II memorabilia.
Yeah. General Thrawn, actually, in Rebels, if you read his story, that was part of what he liked to do, is he collected old war memorabilia, so he had a bunch of stuff from the Clone Wars. Well, I actually like the idea that Will Chaser may have at one point also found some old war stuff, and I really like the idea of having one or two really iconic droids to be part of the story in the game. And I love those vulture droids so much that I thought it might be a neat idea. And this is all tentative, of course. And that's why I was saying, you know, at the end of the cast last time, I was saying, you know, I don't know exactly how this is going to go, but, you know, you get led to Maz Kanata one way or another. And I forget exactly like I said, but as I'm explaining now, it doesn't really matter. But, like, for instance, it's all tentative. But, for instance, I like the idea of possibly... you know, you get found by this vulture droid who, you know, she's got like this lady personality, and she, you know, because I think the vulture droids just kind of mostly did like a click, click, click type sound. And, but I like the idea that, you know, she's like she's LV, Lady Vulture, Series 3 or something like that, so she could be LVS 3. But she's this droid that shows up, and basically she's a modified old vulture droid, and she has like this general like cockpit with a real basic life support and like an undermount barrel that like a human can jump in, or a humanoid can jump into, and man the guns on the barrel. And I like the idea that maybe she can show up as Will Chaser's kind of like a envoy for the Dark Acolytes, because she's this character that can show up and just fly in, make a difference, and disappear just as fast as she showed up. But because she has a fighter plan essentially.
So you're gonna find her early in the game.
Yeah.
She's the one. When you find her and get into the cockpit, she's the one that leads you to Maz Kitana.
Possibly, yeah. So and like I said, it's all tentative, but there's also it was a big thing for me that I want the game to start with you encountering a droid that's going to help you in a sort of tutorial-esque way. And I love those vulture droids so much that I was like, you know what, that might be the jackpot right there. Just because I know I like it, and just the style of it. Somebody else must be on the same thought train as me. I can't be the only one. So whenever you jump in, she can take you somewhere else. Specifically herself, she can just you ride at her. Another thing is that she would have to be modified to have a hyperspace, so she would look a little different than a normal vulture droid, but that's why she's the Lady Vulture.
Maybe a little slower too. I feel like
probably fly around maybe a little slower. Yeah, she'd be a little.
How slow can you possibly go in space?
No, TIE fighters are.
It's not confined by atmosphere. So I don't think it would really matter.
Yeah, true.
That small change in mass. I mean, you don't need to be aerodynamic.
The cockpit could still be pretty aerodynamic, but it still adds some mass for sure. And then there's like
I'm not sure how much of a difference that.
The hyperdrive is basically like an arrangement of like thrusters on the back of it that would have to be added. That's usually all that manifests as on the ship.
Maybe throw her a turbo too, just to pick up the extra weight.
Well, yeah. I mean, however, I'm sure it'd be super fun
Fast
for some kind of
nitro rig.
For some kind of artist to actually render the design for the LV. But in any case, and she'd be a fun character too. And one of the things about her, and one of the reasons why I brought her up, was because she's owned by Will Chaser, but nobody knows that, because the vultures, the Lady Vultures, they have this a main thing in their program is that they don't divulge who their owner is, what their objectives are, what their programming is, what their protocols are. They divulge that to nobody except their owner, and they don't divulge who their owner is to anyone either. And it's sad, but I think I'm going to explain that's what happened with the LV2, was that she basically was compromised and caught, and she had to just self-destruct because that's she's not supposed to give away.
Well, that's terrible.
The rest, like who she's owned by. Yeah, it'd be a sad, tragic thing, but that's kind of I don't know. I think
cute little droid you fell in love with and basically helped you throughout the entire game.
Yeah.
She's doomed to die.
Part of her protocol is that if she gets caught, but yeah, that'd be a great. But wouldn't that be a great like one of the final missions is that LV gets captured and compromised, and you have to go in because she will self-destruct if she's after a certain amount of time or whatever.
Dude, obviously it's a good idea. It almost brought a tear to my eye.
Awesome. All right. So, but that's why she's Series 3. That's why you find out. Like, Series 1, I'm going to explain, goes crazy. And then Series 2 is actually going to be, like, a great droid that everybody loved. But then she got compromised and died.
Is she going to have the voice that we talked about before?
Oh, probably. Yeah, probably.
How's that voice going to go?
I don't know. I don't know for sure. But, okay, so this is Will Chaser, who, I mean, I don't want to... I hate to talk about him and get like almost like racy about it, but he is supposed to be like a real cool black guy. And like, ah man, I need to get my boy Trey to help me actually design him
like
because
70s funk.
but yeah for sure, like Black Dynamite style, cool. Like man, I don't know any actors' names. I don't know any actors' names though. So. But yeah, like oh well, like I don't know, man. Lando is cool. Lando is super cool too. They could totally be friends.
Yeah.
But,
I feel like he's almost an homage to Lando if
Yeah.
Lando was a Jedi.
yeah, the character is kind of an homage to Lando, and I like the whole like cool '70s style, and I was always a fan of the like Shaft and those like just like the cool black guy action and heroes. So that's what Will Chaser is supposed to be to a certain degree. He's a we actually did get into a little bit of his background what I was talking about before, but so Lady Vulture, she basically hangs out where the Dark Acolytes are based, and once you do go and you find them, and you finally meet Will Chaser. Uh, well, I'm not sure how exactly all the events would play out, but once you actually find the Dark Acolytes. They're you'll find that basically LV is like almost like a member of them as this droid that hangs out with them, but she's owned by Will. So let's see. There was one other thing that I realized I didn't actually answer fully when you asked whenever you pick a character, do they already have a name, or do you get to pick the name? And I started to explain it. Oh yeah, thanks. I got some dry mouth going on. So I started to explain that you're actually going to run into the characters that you don't choose in the game later on, and essentially they are the members of the Dark Acolytes. So they're going to be like these background members. They're the members of the Dark Acolytes that you join. You're like the junior member of the Dark Acolytes. You're their last initiate. You can rise to become an assassin master throughout the course of the game if you're good. You actually don't have to go and have anything to do with them if you want. You could be like, yeah, well, I'm just a punk force user that I'm just going to go and do things on my own and I don't need your help.
So you don't have to join the Dark Acolytes if you don't want to?
You totally don't have to, but it is a good idea. It's probably your best bet as a character.
So you might never meet LV.
Oh, you will meet LV at the beginning of the game because the Dark Acolytes are interested in you as a force user. And they're trying to find members as well, just like the Imperial Knights are.
It just
but
happens
their thing is
that droid that you found that belongs to the leader of the Dark Acolytes.
Right, and because they're doing their own little bit of recruiting also, and I want to kind of explain that maybe they're doing it through the help of some pirates. Will Chaser is he's a cool cat, so he's got friends everywhere. Maz Kanata is the pirate queen. I think it'd be really choice if they just so happen to be like good friends. And so I kind of like the idea of maybe whenever LV finds one of these people that's force adept and she's sent to them, or whenever the Dark Acolytes find someone that's force adept, LV gets sent to them to where no one ever sees a member of the Dark Acolytes, but this droid comes and is like, hey, why don't you come with me, and I'll save your life right now in this situation if but essentially she'll take you to Maz Kanata.
LV is the recruiter.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And basically it's just so that the Dark Acolytes are never actually seen in situations that can tie them to anything.
No, that's really cool.
So you as
that concept.
Yeah, the game. That's why I was saying the game is going to be a little like it's ambitious as far as what someone that wants to do the programming and stuff is what they want to create in terms of gameplay. Because I'm trying to think of scenarios that are
Disney funding. They can do it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I'm talking like missions that are gonna be weird, like waiting for the right time to like kidnap somebody,
Skyrim did it.
Yeah. I know. I feel you.
It's a space Skyrim.
Yeah. I don't know.
Multiple
Maybe I'm feeling like
planets.
there's gonna be crazy elements to this.
It can definitely be done. It can definitely be done. It can definitely be done. So let's talk more about the Dark Acolytes and their leader, Will Chaser.
Yeah.
We need to.
Whenever you join, like I said, the other members of the Dark Acolytes are characters that you're not actually going to get to know too much about because it just shouldn't actually matter too much. I kind of like the idea of maybe them having names that are set names. That's like, if you don't pick the Anzat, someone else will pick the Anzat. Or I'm sorry. If you don't pick the Anzat will still show up as a member of the Dark Acolytes. And maybe they'll have a MMO. And well, there's also the idea that whenever you go play like a possible online thing, someone could show up as just like, oh, I am the Anzat in this world also, and so like
there could be secret spots in the world you could only
or just another Anzat Force user that's just like, oh yeah, I'm also a member of the Dark Acolytes. You just haven't met me yet, or something. I don't know.
So you could potentially hop online with your friends. And instead of having a crew member that you play with each character individually to perform your mission, you could have a group of people online.
Oh yeah, you can make a little tiny fleet, where it's your crew and them and their crew.
Oh man, this just gets better and better.
Yeah, it could be really crazy if as far as it's just how ambitious somebody wants to get with it. This is the only game that I've designed a universe for where the actual game that I have in mind is like the sky's the limit. Like, just go crazy with whatever you can do. Because I know it's possible, but it is ambitious. This is the one game where I've just taken into account, like, I don't care if people are gonna be like, oh man, that's a lofty idea. I'm just kind of like, well, let's just go ham with this one.
It's a touchy time zone.
Right. Yeah, that's another weird thing about the game is the time zone that I picked, but. So I kind of like the idea of maybe the other characters having whatever that NPC that shows up as another background member of the Dark Acolytes, whatever their name is, maybe say whenever you go to pick, if you want to play an Anzat, say for instance on your next character, whenever you go to play them, it might have the name of that stock character Anzat already picked out. But then maybe that character, the stock character, might be a female, and then if you change it to male, we'll just be like, whatever, just pick your name now. But that way it could just be sort of like a little background lore where it's like, yeah, this character does have like a tiny bit, maybe one tiny thing that's, one paragraph or two that character says as part of their dialogue that hints at what their background is, but that's it. That way maybe those characters can just have a tiny bit of lore connected to them so that whenever you play them you can be like, oh yeah, this character, when they're an NPC, they play with this type of swordplay, or they're, like amazing at telekinesis, or oh, they're so great at like mind control of other creatures and stuff like that. And then you realize, oh, when I play that race, maybe they have tendency to just, that's what they're good at anyways because that's what the NPC does. Maybe little clues like that. I don't know. Just clues like that in video games are neat, I think. So it might be a way to go.
By watching how one of these main characters play as an NPC, you can learn how the best way to optimize them as in your own playability of them.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Like Umbarans, for instance, are always supposed to be about like stealth, and like they are like an assassin type race almost. So, whenever you play the Umbaran, you'd be best at like assassin and spy type stuff and hiding. Bothans are kind of similar. Anyways, so let's see. Yeah, so we're getting to Will Chaser. So basically, we should kind of explain Will Chaser's life in general. Will Chaser was a young nephew of Mace Windu. Actually, Mace Windu I think according to canon, he was the actual leader of the entire Jedi Council there for a while, but I don't know if that's true.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if that's actually true of the timeline, right? Actually, like before he went in to try to arrest the Emperor, and there was um, the whole scene where the two of them fought. But
How did the leader of the Jedi count? How did Mace Windu get taken down?
I don't know. I know,
I
man.
don't even remember how that fight happened. I think I just
Well,
blocked it out of my memory.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it is funny how big things like that are forgettable. Like how everybody forgot the actual dialogue there where Darth Vader says, "I am your father." A lot of people say, "Luke, I am your father," but Darth Vader never actually says, "Luke,
Yeah, it's just...
I am your father." He just says, "I am your father," and because he's like, "You killed my father," and he's like, "No, I am your father," but he doesn't say Luke like at all.
Interesting.
So, but I don't know,
Yeah,
and I might
I
have
would've
just gotten it
thought- I
wrong
would've
myself.
thought it
But
was
it's funny how
it was
people
Luke.
actually forget that, like, the main important things. But actually, I do remember what happened because Mace Windu was possibly about to get the upper hand, because I don't think the Emperor necessarily expected him to be as good at repelling his Force lightning, and then Anakin cut off Windu's hand,
Oh no!
and Windu had no idea it was coming.
Yeah, because at that
blindsided
point,
him.
at that point, Anakin and the Emperor were almost in cahoots, and Mace wasn't aware of that. Oh, that's so
Yeah.
sad, Anakin, you dumb bastard. Oh,
Yeah, you really
what a
messed things up.
shame.
So, so Mace Windu though, he had he had one apprentice actually in the past, and his apprentice was Depa Billaba. And Depa Billaba actually turns out she was the master of a young Caleb Doom, who, if that sounds familiar at all, it's because that's the actual real name of Kanan Jarrus, who is basically one of the main characters of Star Wars Rebels. I think it could be argued that Ezra Bridger, the Padawan in the show, is the actual main character. But Kanan Jarrus is his master. He's a Jedi, and but he was he was only ever trained to be a Jedi Padawan. He never quite became a knight. The show has a really awesome plot device that they use to make it to where he actually does, in spirit, become accepted as a Jedi Knight. But in any case, that's neither here nor there. His master, though, was Depa Billaba. Depa Billaba's master was Mace Windu. But it's not unheard of for a Jedi master to take several apprentices, not at once, but over time they can take another.
Especially if one's his nephew.
Yes, and so that's the story of of Will Chaser, is that he's Mace Windu's nephew, and I kind of want to explain that not only was he Force sensitive, but he, as he was like a youngling, it was noticed that he had trouble with maybe a leaning towards the dark side, and he was interested in why we didn't learn things from the dark side also, and so. The Jedi Council deems that it's a good idea to give him to Mace Windu as his new apprentice. Mace Windu doesn't even want an apprentice, I'm sure he would have been obstinate towards the idea. But it's his family, and so I get to make a little family thing out of this. And so the way the story will go is that, Will, who pretty much everybody will call Chaser, Mace Windu, maybe I kind of like the idea of maybe just only in really family type settings, Mace would call him Billy, and so
Aww.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And pretty much everybody only calls him Chaser, and that's how everybody refers to him. His name is Will Chaser, but yeah, I kind of like the idea of having some really great Mace Windu scenes where it does it'll show him as like a father figure to young Will, and I kind of want to add. It can also add a little something to Mace Windu's character if he explains that the reason why the council decided to give him to him as his Padawan was not only as a test for Mace Windu, but because it was a reflection as to how Mace Windu was whenever he was young, and that maybe whenever Mace Windu was, a young Jedi himself, maybe like someone older, like Yoda, for instance, might remember the young child Mace Windu when he first joined,
Yes.
and how Mace might have had similar flaws,
Yes.
And so he's like, this is your blood, this is your, this is your test that's been given to you as the,
And
as even an older member of the council. This is still a test that you're getting
and just
thrust upon you.
Just how Mace was leader of the Jedi Council, maybe for a little while. His nephew is a dark side user, leader of the Dark Acolytes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect mirror image.
Yeah.
Not exactly the same, but all the right elements are there.
I think this is a possibility. Now, Will Chaser is going to kind of be an older guy in the show.
So
but.
I was
about to go off on a tangent.
That was my next question. Was at what point in the timeline is Will trained by Mace Windu?
Well, he's young. I want to explain that he's
This would be before the Clone Wars.
Yeah, I want to explain that he's maybe a little younger. Maybe just a little younger than Ahsoka Tano would be. And he.
And who's Ahsoka Tano again?
Ahsoka Tano she's the main character of the Clone Wars show. She was Anakin's Padawan.
Yes. Okay.
And so I want to explain that he's a little younger than her. He'd be like the grades a few grades down. He was like this youngling who. He was just at the age where he was going to start being trained by an actual master.
So he'd be as old.
He'd be right about the same age as Kanan Jarrus, actually.
A little younger than Darth Vader was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, like he'd be. So well, Anakin trained Ahsoka, and Ahsoka would be a little older than him. Because I want to explain this is sort of this is during the Clone Wars that he gets, that he takes on Will to be his apprentice.
Okay.
But, I don't know, I am not 100% on all my years there, but I do feel like according to other people's ages it works that way. But in any case, I have just enough time there to where he can train Will just enough to where he, basically, Mace comes to the conclusion that he's just like, hey, listen, the kid is too obstinate, and even though he's my family, he's my blood, and I know you guys feel like the test here is for me to turn him into a Jedi, the bottom line is he's not cut out for this. And I think that maybe that's the other outcome of this test, is for me to realize that sometimes people just aren't, the answer is no, actually in this case. He shouldn't.
He gave it a good sporting try.
Yeah.
He's not going to be a Jedi.
Yeah, maybe I have to, forget my attachment to him personally, and accept that, the dark side is in his heart. And he'll have like this very like heart to heart with Will Chaser, where he'll be like, listen, Billy, I understand, your whole. I told myself I was going to do more impressions in this one, and I have a whole Samuel that I do, but I'm not feeling it right now. I can't do it. Because, dude, I realized we didn't curse at all in the first one. And I kind of feel like we could keep that up.
Yeah, it is good to be family friendly.
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too much into the Samuel, because I won't be able to stop.
There don't have to be any snakes on the plane.
There'll be so many snakes on the plane. Anyways.
Alright, dude. There'll be other accents that come in.
Yes, definitely.
Do it.
The Emperor is great. So Mace takes on this apprentice, and he has this heart to heart with him, where he tells him, I understand that you have this pull towards towards balance, and you understand that maybe we should, understand the light and the dark side. But his deal is, the reason why Mace Windu is so inclined towards the light is maybe because he did have those issues with balance, and they just told him, hey, balance will come, balance always comes, but you have to pick a side. And that's what he tries to stress to Will, is he's like, like, Billy, I do understand where you're coming from. Like, I got a purple lightsaber. Have you ever seen another Jedi with a purple lightsaber? He's just like, I understand your desire for balance. Like, the purple lightsaber, it's a little vague. There are some different answers for what the kyber crystals and the colors mean, but some iterations of what the purple lightsaber means is it just means like a deadly warrior. So I like the idea that maybe the purple lightsaber is wielded by someone who's supposed to actually like kill people with that lightsaber.
And maybe even enjoy it a little bit.
I mean, well, one way or another, like that, it's a possibility that the purple lightsaber is supposed to mean that lightsaber is gonna, make some heads roll.
Yeah.
One way or another.
Angel of death.
Yeah, right. And luckily, Mace Windu he's that for the Jedi Council. He is like possibly their most deadly warrior. It was explained he was like their champion. He was the strongest. That's why he was the leader.
So he has this little conversation with Billy telling him that he needs to find his balance. He's going to find his balance, but he needs to pick a side. Which is exactly what Obi-Wan needed to do with Anakin, because that's exactly what Anakin was dealing with. Anakin was dealing with the dark side instead of his heart. And struggling with that. And Obi-Wan was just like, Anakin, you'll find your way! Come on, Anakin! Anakin!
Right.
Anakin!
And, oh man, gosh, I can't.
But it makes sense that Samuel...
in Mace Windu's fam, I like the idea that maybe they're more just like, hey, like, this is what it is.
Smack.
Yeah, like, this is what it is. You're either light side or you're dark side. Like, at the end of the day, you gotta pick one. And so that's what he tells them. He's like, listen, you have to pick one or the other. And whether or not he's like, well, I don't know whether or not Will is like, well, I choose the dark side, or whether he's like, well, I can't choose. I choose both. Whatever his answer is, Mace is like, all right, well, then you just chose that I have to exile you. So he's actually banished from the Jedi and exiled as a young Padawan, so he never gets to actually finish his training. But neither did Kanan Jarrus, technically. I like that I was able to kind of bring him up, and that he's connected to the Mace Windu story.
All you really need to do is flip a switch, and somebody can... it's like going to school. You can educate yourself if you really try.
Right.
You don't need to go to school to be smart.
And that's actually a super awesome thing that happened. That's actually a super awesome thing that happens in the Rebel show, is that Kanan Jarrus does become a Jedi Knight because he's an amazing Jedi. And just because he was only ever a Padawan doesn't mean that he didn't become worthy of becoming a Jedi Knight in his skills, because he was extremely skilled. But there was this great plot element where they included the fact that the first Grand Inquisitor that they fight, the first Inquisitor is like this, he's basically being trained as a Sith by Vader. But they give you just enough of a glimpse at his background where you realize he was actually one of the Jedi Temple Knights. That, I don't know if they just captured him or what the backstory is exactly, but he was originally a Jedi Temple Knight that for whatever reason survived Order 66. Maybe he just pledged himself to the Emperor instead. Which is like, maybe he was just like, I'm not a Jedi. I don't know what the story of him is, but he was originally a Jedi.
Jedi mind trick a couple clones or droids.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to get too much into it, because there's actually a good possibility that character already has a story out there that I just don't know. but in any case, there's this great scene where he has this vision where in a Jedi temple, where he faces the Jedi Temple Guard, and they always wore masks. And at the end of his fight with him in the vision, he reveals himself to actually be the Grand Inquisitor. And the Grand Inquisitor kind of symbolically, because he's been fighting the Grand Inquisitor all along, and the Grand Inquisitor was technically a Jedi Master. The Jedi, or I'm sorry, the Inquisitor, as the Jedi Temple Guard in his vision, knights him in the traditional Jedi knighting. And so Kanan actually becomes technically a Jedi Knight, knighted by the villain that he fought. Isn't that neat?
In the Rebel show?
Yeah, it's this super cool like arc, like underlying arc that happens. Is that the Grand Inquisitor was actually originally a Jedi guard, and it turns out that's the big important thing about that character, is that why it's important is that's why Kanan is able to technically take the title of a Jedi Knight, is because he fought the first Grand Inquisitor.
That's crazy.
Well enough to where in a Force vision he comes to him and it's like, yeah, you do pass, by the way, you are a Jedi Knight. It was a great scene. Anyways, so yeah, like you're saying,
maybe I should give that show another chance.
You should, man. It's really neat. I get what you're saying. It's a little juvenile, but that's the way it goes with any kind of nerd stuff, like comic book movies.
But I also only got to episode 6, so how serious could the storyline have possibly been at that point?
Yeah, that's by episode 6, you're kind of just dipping your toes. But anyway, so on the Will Chaser thing, he does. I want to leave his backstory really open because it's actually going to stretch through a lot of the same time period as Rebels. But whenever he gets exiled, now the thing is, it kind of represents this. For him to get exiled, it kind of represents this choice. Mace Windu would not have wanted to do it. That's his family, but he represents like when a father has to make a difficult choice. And is it the right choice or not? It's hard to say because it haunts him, and actually, tragically, Mace Windu doesn't get to make that decision right. He dies by the end of the Clone Wars. So it would have been somewhat shortly after he exiled him that he actually dies, and he never gets to go back and make things right with Will. So it kind of represents like this, like, oh, what if you have a fight with your son, and then the next thing you know, you die. Like it's tragic, and so
famous last words.
Yeah, and so what if that is? Yeah, exactly. What if that is the last time he actually talks to him, and then he ends up exiled, and he never gets to actually, there's never that moment where it's like, oh, it turns out I am proud of you and what you've been able to accomplish. He's never going to be able to get that with him. Well, the important thing about that, why that's important comes up later.
Every father wants their son to be a mirror image of themselves, and inevitably that always fails. But a good father will always love his son for whatever his son accomplishes in his own right, and for his son's legacy, not his own.
But at least for the redemption of Mace Windu's character as a character, and so that it doesn't hurt who Mace Windu is as a character, the bottom line is when he makes that hard decision and he exiles Will, that does save his life, because in Order 66 all the Jedi are killed. But if Will Chaser was not a Jedi, then he's fine. He doesn't get killed. So he's this young Force wielder who's been trained to be a Padawan, but he's been cast out as this exile from the Jedi. So maybe he harbors resentment, maybe not, but in any case, however his story plays out, eventually he does realize that the Empire is run by the Sith. That they're run by dark side users, which it's really actually kind of a weird thing how that works. Do
you think that will ever be visited by a Mace Windu Force ghost?
Mace Windu does not have a Force ghost.
How do you know?
Well, he doesn't in canon, but I suppose there is like the slight possibility that someone could introduce Mace Windu's Force Ghost as a character.
That could be a great idea, but only for like a one-time thing, like a Mufasa from the heavens.
It's not technically feasible based on the way that the Force Ghosts are supposed to work. And I mentioned that only because technically Qui-Gon was supposed to have been the first Jedi to figure that out.
Well, it could be very vague, almost as if like it was a dream, but you're not sure if it was or wasn't.
Qui-Gon was supposed to be the first Jedi to figure that out.
Well, how do you know that? I mean,
that's just part of the lore. That's just a stated thing in the lore.
Yeah, well, legends can be wrong sometimes.
Yeah,
I think
I feel you.
I think it would be fun to play with the idea.
It was in the movie. There's also something that I don't know for sure because I haven't been able to find it in my research. It would be just as easy as finding an actual version of the movie though. That there's some of those things that I need to do. I need to just go back and watch all of the actual, completely remastered movies. But like for instance, does Qui-Gon Jinn's Force Ghost show up next to Anakin and Obi-Wan and Yoda at the end of Return of the Jedi in the remastered version after?
That would be very
because that's extremely important in my opinion. In my opinion, that's extremely important because that it wouldn't seem like it would be, but it shows a difference in that in how Force Ghosts can operate. In that, whenever Luke looks over,
does a Force Ghost only appear to someone who's known that Force Ghost in real life?
That's exactly what I was going to get at. Because exactly. Whenever at the end of Return of the Jedi, the Force Ghosts that are seen there are seen by the audience, and it's implied that they're being seen by Luke because Luke looks over and is like, "Hey, you guys, like,
I know
you're over there, celebrating too." Oh gosh, but it's kind of like, oh okay, I get it. Like he sees them because he knew them.
Yeah, because what about all the what do they call them? The little furry bear-like creatures.
The Ewoks were all there too.
Yeah, did the Ewoks see the Force Ghosts?
Right, and I don't think they did. I
don't think
they did. I think only Luke saw them.
Or maybe you just have to be Force sensitive to see them.
Could be. Knows? I don't know, but it's implied Leia was Force sensitive. Did she see them? Hard to say. So, but anyways, if Qui-Gon was there, that's a whole other thing because Qui-Gon technically should have a Force Ghost out there somewhere.
Leia met Obi-Wan for a brief moment, didn't she?
Did she?
On the Death Star.
I guess that's another one of those things I'd have to go back and watch A New Hope. Because Obi-Wan dies on A New Hope.
He does die, but
I kind of feel like they might not have actually met. But
well, she sees him fight. She sees him as they're running in to the Millennium Falcon.
All right. Okay.
As he's fighting Darth Vader, remember?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. So I guess there's a possibility she might have seen him at some point during that movie. I'd have to watch it again. I'm probably gonna feel like an idiot. I'm gonna go back and watch it, and it's gonna turn out they're all like buddies, like they're like a good 2/3 of the movie or something. We're like, oh dang.
No. Well. She knew of him. She
definitely knew of him.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope.
He was the only hope.
Dude! Obi-Wan brought her as a baby to her parents.
Oh, that's right.
Of course she knows Obi-Wan. She even potentially knows Yoda as a baby.
Yeah, maybe. Well, anyways... if Qui-Gon was there, then it's definitely like, oh, okay, well, you can see other Force Ghosts that you didn't even know in life, because Luke definitely didn't know no Qui-Gon in his life. Anyways, where did that tangent come from, though? Where were we at? With the
Mace Windu's Space Force Ghost.
Space Ghost.
Space Ghost.
The Mace Ghost of the Space Ghost. Anyways, so no,
oh boy.
I didn't have any plans for a Mace Windu Space Ghost. It's supposed to be a new thing that the Jedi's went through. And I also kind of feel like you kind of have to possibly die at peace with yourself and the world in order to become a Force spirit, which all those characters did.
Wait, did Qui-Gon?
Qui-Gon is the only one who it might be argued against that theory, because he just died. He got mortally wounded in his fight with Darth Maul, and then he was laying there, and Obi-Wan came and held him, and he's like, "Master!" And it was this whole like adorable like Sam and Frodo type scene where he's crying over him,
like
and he's
exactly how Darth Vader redeemed himself to Luke, his son, before he died.
Yeah. There's a scene where they're in each other's arms there for a second, and he's like, "The boy is the chosen one. You should train him," you know. And that was Qui-Gon's last wish. And then he kind of just like gave in to death there. So I'm kind of like, oh well, you know, he got out his last dying wish, you know, for his mission that he was on, and I think he maybe he was able to just kind of come to peace with himself in the world there for that last
makes
moment.
sense. But if he really wanted to, if he was really powerful enough, he could have probably kept himself from dying.
Yeah, there's definitely arguments towards that.
I mean, I don't know how powerful the Jedi are at doing that compared to how powerful the Sith have been in the past at doing that.
Yeah, because there's definitely that's supposedly what Plagueis was all about.
Plagueis could keep himself alive from any injury. Like, it didn't matter. As long as he got out of there alive, he was usually good. And even in the new movie, Kylo Ren got injured pretty bad, and it seemed like he was almost like it seemed like he was stumbling around, but he also got like stabbed and sliced at one point, I'm pretty sure, and he was like stumbling around like, oh, I just need to keep myself alive and get myself out of here real quick.
Yeah, in the Plagueis book, he explained that sometimes it's as easy to heal yourself as it is to like move things around telekinetically with the Force. Because if you're just familiar with how to move that biology back into place, you know, like literally you can just telekinetically reset that bone, you know, or whatever. So I mean, yeah, there's, but in any case, it's about I kind of feel like it's about accepting your own death as you're dying, because all of them that became Force ghosts or Force spirits did kind of do that, and definitely Mace Windu did not like die in a peaceful way. He got like electrocuted, possibly mostly electrocuted to his death midair, and got like thrown from a very, very tall building in Coruscant.
That is quite a shame.
Yeah,
and
he also was like reeling in no, I'm sure he was also like, not only was he reeling in pain, but he was also like flabbergasted by Anakin's betrayal.
Oh yeah, he was a total shock.
He was just like, what? Yeah, he didn't die peacefully at all. So, if that's
anyone's gonna betray the
if
team,
that's the understated.
Everyone was skeptical of Anakin from the beginning. Yeah. The entire council was like, "No, there's too much dark side in him. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Oh, you're doing it. Please stop. Oh, you kept on doing it. Well, I guess we might as well let him
now
do
he's
missions."
Cut off Mace's hand. Kit Fisto's
I
over
can't
there.
believe it. He's cut off my hand.
Shoot, we should have trusted everyone except for Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon all along. Anyways, but yeah, I do like the idea of the Force spirits, and they're actually going to have a big impact on the game. At least the backstory of the game. Because now one of the things that's going to happen with Will Chaser is that he does, through his own spy work, find out that yes, the Lord Vader and the Empire are ruled by the Sith, and that there are Sith at the top, and that he's pretty sure it's the Emperor and Lord Vader, so he's got it figured out. And his deal is he feels that what he should use his power of being able to take another life, which that's what the dark side is about, is your power to take another life. But he feels that his power to take another life should be used towards taking out people that are wielding the Force towards perversion. So he believes, yes, it is important for me to learn how to use the Force and be strong enough to obliterate life if that's the need. But basically, he's like a dark side user that figures out for the first time what, like Spider-Man learns from Uncle Ben in the old Spider-Man, is that with great power comes great responsibility. And he's kind of like, he eventually becomes of the mindset that what he ought do is, respect the Force that gives him all this power, to the point where he should sit back and watch and see how the Force plays things out itself in the universe. And then whenever somebody wields the Force towards perversion or towards their own gains, and basically dominates the Force itself towards their own ends, that those are the people that need to be cut down and brought off of their pedestal. And he deduces that that is what the Empire is. They are the people that are, they're wielding all the power. Essentially, he'd be almost something like an anarchist, in our time. So it'd be feasible that he might be something like he might even know some of the rebels during the rebels' time, But the fact that he is an actual Force user and an actual Darksider will be completely hidden to everyone. That's something that he doesn't actually want anybody to know about. Now, the really important thing to his story, and what sort of ties him into the rest of the Star Wars world, is not just that he's Mace Windu's nephew. That's just sort of a little, that is his background. But how he grows up, whatever his sort of walkabout journey is in life, where it takes him eventually is to the Bendu. The Bendu is this important character in The Force Awakens. I'm sorry, not The Force Awakens, in Rebels. And the Bendu is this character that's supposed to embody the Force, but also he's supposed to embody like the balance of the Force. He is not the light or the dark. He's in the middle. And the Bendu's real mysterious.
How was the Bendu introduced?
He just sort of stays out of the way on this little planet that has like a bunch of spider-like creatures on it.
Was he in the movie? Or was he just talked about?
He's just in Rebels.
Oh, he was in Rebels, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And he actually, I don't want to spoil too much since you haven't seen it, but he actually has an impact on the final scene of the final episodes.
Oh, jeez, well that... Don't say
it's
no
not
more.
over. The show's not over.
Yeah, don't say any more.
So
the Bendu's obviously important, but how was he introduced?
Well, it's almost like how Yoda is introduced in the old movies. How he's just like this little unsuspecting creature on this unsuspecting planet. Dagobah is this little blip on the screen where it wasn't supposed to be any sentient life really or anything.
This inherently dark side planet where Yoda was hiding out. So there's there's an equally dark side.
Yeah, this planet was like a barren type planet, a lot of desert, but he's this big creature, and he has like ridges on his back that look similar to like the rock formations on that planet.
Wow.
And he sort of like, whenever he's leaned over, he can kind of like whenever he's hunched over, he can almost kind of disguise himself as just like a natural formation in that world.
So what is he, like 7-8 feet tall, like Wookiee style?
Oh, he's like
or is he huge?
He's like maybe something like 20, 30 feet tall.
Wow.
Yeah. He's
okay, so he doesn't leave the planet.
He's big. Yeah, and the lucky thing is he doesn't actually interfere in like anything if he can help it. He's in the middle.
Oh, exactly.
So it's implied he's quite powerful, but
you can't always be in the middle, because honestly, here's what people forget: to be in the middle, you kind of have to take yourself out of the situation permanently. You would kind of
sometimes you have to fight to be in the middle. Well, I don't know if that's where you're going
so,
with that, but
well, I'm saying to truly be in the middle, to truly not partake in either one of the two factions, to not be contributing to anything that's happening around you. There are a lot of people that try to find that neutral, that balance, and like the Buddhist monks go up to the Himalayan mountains and whatnot, and live alone as outcasts. But to honestly find that balance, to completely take yourself out of the situation, you would have to take yourself out of the situation permanently. So inherently, no matter how much you try to be in the middle, you always end up pushing one of the two sides a little too far, because no being is perfect.
Mm-hmm. And it's like even a frequency is like goes up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. So it's never just 100% one way or another. Even if you were all about perfect balance, you would still it would still have to be like a pull this way and a pull that way and then a pull this way and then a pull that way. So I get what you're saying.
So at times that balance will be out of scale, just because of the fact that he's a living, human, breathing being on a planet and not an all-powerful god.
Mm. Well, I like the character enough to where I want to reference him, but I don't necessarily want to have him be a big player in the story. But I do like the idea that at some point in Will's personal journey of finding himself, he comes across the Bendu, and the Bendu tells him, you will be able to find a place where you'll be able to find out what you should do, because basically Will has to find out what his goal is as a dark side user. He has to find out what his place in the world is, and eventually he gets sent to he finds the Bendu, and the Bendu, when he asks him what's my place, I use the dark side, but I want to there are people that I know I have to kill, but I want to kill them for the right reasons, or whatever his reasoning is. He's got issues with trying to find out who it is he's supposed to kill, essentially.
Yeah.
So the Bendu is like, all right,
what is killing that is considered moral, and what is, because there's a very fine line when it comes to killing between killing for pleasure and killing for morals.
He knows he's got the power to kill, and he knows that's what the Force can give you if you're a dark side user, Yeah. But he's looking for how he gauges his responsibility with it. He's looking for how you use the dark side in the right way,
Yeah.
So the Bendu is like the perfect character for him to come across, because the Bendu is like, well, I guess I can show you how to come across some kind of balance with it. And so the Bendu tells him, I want you to go to this one planet, and that's where you will find both the light side and the dark side. Familiar planet. It's actually going to be Dagobah. He actually sends the Bendu sends Will to Dagobah. And when he sends Will to Dagobah, he finds a planet that, yes, for sure, it's got lots of dark side energy. I don't know if I want to explain that he's already has one initiate at that point. And he's wanting to start the Dark Acolytes. He's wanting to start this new faction, because he's training at least one kid to be like the new Dark Acolyte. And so he goes there and he meets Yoda, though, also. And he recognizes Yoda because he knows him from back when he was a kid in the Jedi, when he was a Padawan.
Yeah, exactly.
And so he'd be like, "Oh my goodness, Yoda, you're a master." And now I understand. Now I understand why this is a place that has both dark and light. And I've been sent to you because you must be the one who is going to train me.
Teach me to find my balance.
And Yoda's like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, You have to train me." And he's like, "Well,
teach you I will."
He's like, "Yeah."
Maybe not.
Well, Yoda remembers that he got exiled. And he's like, so return to the light you have. you know, and he's like, oh, well, no. He's like, I'm definitely a dark side user. And he's like, what? He's like, well, then teach you I cannot, you know, for sure. Like, that's, okay, well, what are you even talking about? Get out of here. And he's like, well, this is a planet of dark side energy, you know, I was sent here because this is my fate, is to be here, and also I think that you're my fate, and you have to train me, you have to train us. You know, you're the master, you know, you've been using the Force for what, hundreds of years, you know, and he's like, there has to be experience that comes with that. I have to learn secrets from you. And Yoda's pretty staunch. He's like, no, listen, you know, I have to reject the dark side. It's already bad enough that I'm here on this planet. You know, I kind of want to imply that that's partially why Yoda is starting to lose his mind, because he kind of almost has to battle the dark side that's inherent on Dagobah at all times with his mind, you know. And so he's like, no, I definitely can't accept more dark side on this planet. It's unacceptable. And he's like, and this whole idea of me training you, no. He's like, only if you were to return the light, because that's all the universe needs right now. And Will's like, no, you don't understand. What the universe, or what the galaxy needs right now is for the Empire to be toppled. We need just the right people to take out just the right people. You know, we need to do it from the shadows. And no one needs to take credit, but that's what I want to do. You know, I want to be this invisible hand that, you know, is the executioner for the Force, almost, you know. And he's like, oh, he wants to take out the Empire, do you? And he's like, yes, they're the Sith Lords, you know. And Yoda's a little impressed. He's like, alright, you know, he did figure out that the Sith Lords are the Empire. And, you know, it's kind of impressive that he's ambitious enough to want to take them out from it by cutting the head off the snake.
Now, was that not like galaxy-wide known knowledge that a Sith Lord was?
I don't think it was. No.
They were just like, oh, he's some tyrannical, like, sociopath, or whatever.
Right. They actually never ever mentioned. They never mentioned in the old movies that the Emperor was a Sith, actually.
So when he comes out with the lightning, it's like, whoa, he's a Force user?
They didn't even... honestly, it was so understated, the fact that he was an actual Sith, that they could have explained, like, just as a for instance, they could have explained that the Emperor was actually a race of humanoid that, like, looked like humans, but they were from some planet where they could all channel, like, electricity.
Like, they could have explained it like that if they wanted to?
If they wanted to, they could have explained that the Emperor just, like, had lightning powers as his own separate thing that had nothing to do with the Force. Because they literally never say that the Emperor is also a Sith. Isn't that crazy?
I don't think George Lucas planned ahead for anything.
I don't think a whole lot of it was as planned out as people think they were.
Yeah, I think George Lucas kind of just, like, improv the first 3 movies.
Well, actually, I don't know, man. I could just be talking out of my ass at this point a little bit, because I'm saying never, and I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure, because I'm pretty sure the Emperor does say some stuff like, you know, you could, you know, turn to the dark side. I think he at least says some stuff about the dark side. So, yeah, maybe they do at least imply that he uses the dark side. But yeah, there was some stuff that was really, really understated like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's definitely worth figuring out. All right, so we've talked a lot about Will Chaser. Let's talk a little bit about the Dark Acolytes before we shut this down.
All right. So the Dark Acolytes, basically the last thing that's important about their story is the little thing that happens with Yoda, because what happens with Yoda is that, you know, he explains his desire to be the assassins that take out the Empire and take out the Sith. He wants to destroy these dark side users that are, you know, perverse. Like he feels like they're an abomination of what the dark side users should be. And he wants to create something better. Yoda's a little bit, like, you know, amused and impressed by it. And he's like, but no, it's still not convincing him. He's like, but we'll make sure that this planet and you are safe because, you know, people will eventually find out about this planet. Somebody might come searching, you know. We can make sure that nobody shows up. We can actually, you know, also protect the secrecy of Dagobah and you yourself, who you're hiding here, you know. We can make sure you aren't found. We can be almost like your bodyguards. Yoda's still like, no, not quite. And he's like, well, I must have been sent here for a reason, right? And he's like, you keep saying this. Why were you sent here? Why are you so sure that I'm the person who's supposed to train you? And he's like, because the Bendu sent me. And yeah, and so I want that to actually be the thing that kind of like is like, you know, like makes Yoda think, and he's like, oh, okay. And so that kind of just adds a little bit more to the backstory of the Bendu and Yoda, who have very, you know, very vague, long years and years of backstory where they could have met each other at some point in the past.
Definitely.
They know what one another are about, at least, you know. And so when the Yoda hears that, he's like, or when Yoda hears that, he's like, okay, all right, maybe there's something to this. So he's like, all right, stay you may. You know, if you want to protect this planet and protect me, then admire that I do. If you want to destroy the Empire and destroy the Sith, the Jedi don't approve of violence, but that's not a mission I disapprove of. So
you don't disapprove of violence.
You can stay. Basically, Yoda tells him that he can stay, but he's not going to train him. Mm-hmm. And so that's actually the biggest thing, and that's the best way to wrap up the story of the Dark Acolytes before you meet them in the game, because essentially that's the thing is that I want to explain. That's why Yoda dies, is because he at that point, you know, he's traveled.
Even if he's not necessarily training Will Chaser, just having Will Chaser live there with Yoda, Yoda's going to impart knowledge and inevitably teach him some stuff.
Well, not just that. Well, no, I want to kind of imply that Yoda does stay as separate from him as he can. But he does. So the great thing about him making that decision is, first of all, it implies that, you know, one of the big things that I want to explain is that Anakin doing his deed and Anakin being the chosen one and bringing balance to the Force, one of the big things that will happen is that the dark side will see the light and the light side will see the dark. Or, you know, and like both sides will become like inverted in a sort of a way. And even though Anakin would not have killed the Emperor by that point, he hasn't done his ultimate deed, I think it might be interesting to explain that.
A foreshadowing. That
Yoda, being one of the very last Jedi that existed, whenever Will comes to him and is like, well, you know, the Bendu sent me though, and I know I have some sort of reason why I have to be here. I think that might be when Yoda says, you know what, all the other stuff that he said made some sense, and I am going to let him stay here. I think I kind of want to explain that is the moment where he kind of sees the dark side in a certain way that he's never seen it before. And it's almost like he accepts it into his heart in a way that he had never done before, because he had just never seen it from that perspective. That suddenly Will, you know... explaining it to him changed that, and so it's almost like
dark side user,
right? And so it's almost like the Bendu sending him to Yoda was good for Will, but also maybe something that maybe Bendu thought Yoda could use. You know, it's like, oh man, if only Yoda could hear this kid talk. You know, so it's also a great scene to have, I think, because
I wonder if Bendu knew what the outcome would be for Yoda in the end.
I don't know, but it also be
because Yoda allowing the dark side into his heart is what perverted the Force that he was using to keep himself alive for such a long period of time.
Yeah, so I kind of want to imply that maybe whenever you're a light side user and you're a master, that maybe you know, this whole thing that the Sith, you know, like especially Plagueis was supposed to be trying to figure out, how he was supposed to be trying to figure out immortality. I almost feel like it might be an interesting thing to kind of imply that if you're a master of the light side, maybe you just don't die of old age. And I kind of thought it might be this kind of funny thing to have Yoda tell someone in the story, like, that actually in his race they don't actually grow. They don't actually grow to be as old as he's grown. Like, they only grow to, like, maybe less than 100 years or something, but he's like in his 800s. And so maybe I could kind of imply that if you're just a completely at peace, peace.
Enlightenment. What's the word? What are you looking for?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the exact expression I'm trying to grasp for, but in any case, if you're like, like a perfectly enlightened Jedi or whatever, that maybe you just are essentially something like immortal. You just kind of aren't dying. But whenever Will comes to the planet and he, Yoda kind of accepts this new perspective on the dark side, I kind of want to explain that maybe that's why he starts to get sick. And why, whenever Luke talks to him, because Luke shows up as kind of this fluke thing, and if the Dark Acolytes are assassins, it could easily be explained, especially if Yoda is not actually training them, it could easily be explained that they don't actually stay near where Yoda lives on the planet.
Of course.
And even if
if
they had some sentries,
the Dark Acolyte home base is on Dagobah.
It's on Dagobah.
Oh,
the
wow.
same place where Luke would have showed up. And even if they had some sentries, maybe that would have been watching while Luke was there.
Well, I mean, the rebels were able to keep their forces hidden from the Empire for years. I'm sure it's not too hard to keep yourself safe from a couple satellites and sensors.
Yes and no. The reason why Yoda was hiding on Dagobah was because the force energy that was already prevalent there hid his force energy.
Yes.
So when you're a force wielder, it's harder to hide from the Empire than just a normal rebel sect.
Well, that makes perfect sense, but even more dark side users on that planet, I feel like, would camouflage them even more. Am I wrong?
No, I mean, no, it could definitely be explained that way. There is kind of the idea that maybe the Empire was also looking for Darksiders, but it would be easy to miss Darksiders on a planet that just is emitting all Darkside energy.
Oh yeah, they're like, nobody lives on Dagobah.
Yeah.
Just skip that planet. We don't want to go there.
Right, exactly. It just looks like a giant horrid swamp,
Yeah.
So, so I like the idea that Dagobah could be this perfect base for the Dark Acolytes, and that if they get sent to make that their base by the Bendu originally, whenever there was only one initiate and Will himself, that Yoda basically is like, you guys can stay here and do your thing then, but I'm not actually going to train you. You do have to stay out of my actual living area.
So as Will's trying to find balance and how to use the dark side, he ends up finding the Bendu, and he sees the Bendu as this all-knowing god type figure, and the Bendu directs him to Dagobah, where he ends up finding Yoda.
Mm-hmm.
And although Yoda will not train him, he allows Will to stay there so that Will can train his own Dark Acolytes. And that is where the Dark Acolyte home base exists, is on Dagobah.
Yep. And so basically Will is just kind of able to set up his whole deal from there, and that's why he sort of he lives as like a traveling, like a wealthy playboy gambler, like as if he just kind of has gotten all his money through luck and stuff like that, but really he's got things that he does. He's a dark dude. He's got his whole alter personality kind of almost.
This Dark Acolyte home base, obviously it's quite a distance away from Yoda. What does it look like?
Oh man, that's still some stuff that's open to artists, because now these are dark side users. They're definitely more about individuality.
How many initiates does he have as Dark Acolytes?
Whenever you start the game, he will have gone from just himself and his original initiate to now 9 characters.
So he has 9 acolytes.
Or well, 8 other one. 8. I'm sorry.
So we're talking about a really small
it'll be
operation.
9 including him. Yeah.
We're talking about a really small operation, something that can take place on a spaceship of itself.
Keep in mind, the Imperial Knights started with only 6. Everybody but 6 of them were killed. Now they've got probably a couple squires, but I don't want to have them be much more than that either. The new Force user factions that exist are not very huge. There's not a whole ton of them on each side.
So whatever awesome operation they have going on can't be that big. Like they could literally just have, like a literally 9 bedrooms and then like a main meeting room with it. It could
be up to interpretation, because I kind of want to also imply that each one of these characters could have their own ship and their own crew, like you will be destined to get in your game. You know what I mean?
So each one of these Dark Acolytes aren't just... Well, I guess they're 9, so it's not too hard to create 9 backstories.
It also can't be big enough to rise
academy.
above the trees of the swamps of Dagobah, because then that would possibly draw attention to censors or whatever, you know.
Well, I would feel like it would either be in the swamp or maybe even underground.
Yeah.
I feel like underground is probably the way to go.
I like the idea of a sort of semi-underground cavey type thing.
Yeah.
For them. But yeah, that's basically the big thing about them. Now the other metaphorical thing about Yoda saying, "Hey, you know what? I am gonna accept you," is that's the full circle to the Mace Windu part of his story. Is that whereas Mace Windu did make the right decision and he did reject him, and then he died before he was able to reconcile, Yoda sort of got to be the guy that reconciled him. In that he kind of, like, actually it might be great to have a scene where he tells him, you know what, yeah, like when he tells him you can stay, it might be great to have him be like, you know what, I think even though he wouldn't have condoned your use of the dark side, I think that your uncle Mace Windu would have been proud of you, you know. And so it'll be a great roundabout, you know, certainly finish up and come full circle with the whole like Mace Windu story, because whereas Mace Windu kind of made the right decision in rejecting him, and the outcome was good, he saved Will's life, Yoda makes the maybe wrong decision of reconciling with him and saying, hey, you know, I am going to accept you, and I think your uncle would have been proud of you. And that's actually something that's really important to Will's character, and he needed it really badly.
Yeah.
And Will does become almost a force of good, even though he's a dark sider.
Yeah, he almost seems like he is a Jedi inherently in his morals, but he just got like screwed up somewhere in his head, where he's just like, yeah, well, I don't want to disregard the dark side as an option.
He knows that even the Jedi in their heyday were about wielding the power to have the say-so. You know what I mean? And when you wield the power, it has to be, you have to back it up. And so sometimes you have to kill, you know?
Of course.
Or, like, there's no threat of power when there's no... I don't know exactly where I'm getting at with this, but in any case, yeah, he realizes that at the end of the day, you have to accept the dark in a certain aspect if you want to, you know, if you want to be a true warrior one way or another, you know.
See, I don't think, although he's a dark acolyte, very similar to the term dark Jedi, I don't think Will Chaser could ever be a Sith.
Right, no, he hates the Sith.
Exactly.
He feels like they wield the, like, they pervert the Force by the way that they wield it. Mm-hmm. Like, the Force isn't something you should dominate into submission. The Force is something that you can let almost use you to take out, you know, to work towards the Force's ends.
Will Chaser is almost the perfect, like, candidate of, like, the classic term Dark Jedi. But he's the first person to take the idea of being a Dark Jedi and turning it into
its own idea,
its own philosophy.
Yeah,
The
He
Dark
feels like they
Acolytes.
should be what the dark side is,
Beautiful.
essentially. Yeah, I'm glad you like that. And yeah, and that's his whole deal. That's his philosophy, and that's how he finds these other young members. He's got his old war memorabilia. He's got LV3. Maybe he's got a couple other cool droids. They've got their own operation. Like I said, some of them could have their own ships with their own crews and stuff like that. Some of them might just like to fly a little more solo. Who knows? But there's about 9 of them total, and then when you join, if you decide to join, you could just maybe decide to be friends with him and just be friends with Chaser and the rest of the acolytes, but not necessarily full on join. You know what I mean? And you could still get you could still get some just advice from them or whatever. But the idea is that now if you take what would essentially be the main quest.
Mandatory missions you have to do with the acolytes, but you don't necessarily have to be an acolyte to do missions with them.
Right, yeah, that could make sense. But basically it'd be the idea of, for instance, in Skyrim, the main quest takes you through the dragon storyline.
Yeah.
In this game, if you do the main quest, it takes you through the Dark Acolytes storyline. And that's where you get the option to, and most likely you're going to want to just go ahead and join them, because if you join them, that gives you access to some neat stuff, like the Dark Acolytes have access to, they found their own kyber crystal caves on a planet, and their kyber crystal caves are their kyber crystals only turn yellow, purple, or orange for them. Orange is a new one. Technically, it's a new one. In the old Legends canon, supposedly there are some stories where there were some orange lightsabers used, but as far as actual, canon since the reboot, technically there hasn't actually been orange lightsabers shown. So I have some kind of neat ideas for what I want to do with the orange lightsabers, and other than that, it's purple and yellow. So they're gonna look aesthetically different from the Jedi, also in that they're all they all kind of look almost like Sith, and that I'm sure they're gonna look assassin-esque where they wear the black hoods and stuff like that. That will definitely be a possible look for them. But they dress like assassins, and they do have these lightsaber blades.
Yeah, I feel like we almost need a whole episode just to talk about each one of the acolytes themselves.
Maybe not necessarily each one of the acolytes, but we can wrap this up, and we do have a lot more we can talk about where we're going with it, because now there's also the issue of where's the game actually going, how do all the storylines intersect, how do the Dark Acolytes interact with the Imperial Knights, which they I'm sure if you've been keeping up with the story, I'm sure you get the idea that they are just inherently mortal enemies. Just in their whole philosophy, the way that what each one of them are about, they're not going to like each other. So they're they're definitely going to be at odds. And then you've got Karasa Loi, who is just out to kill all Force users. So definitely she's going to be a threat to everyone involved. So how do all the stories end up intersecting? Also, you've got Luke Skywalker out there, who I do have a little bit of a plot device to explain why he's not going to be present through most of the game's story. But
most of it, meaning he might show
but there is the possibility of him showing up near the end of the big whole main storyline. Now, then there's also just the fact that throughout the game, like I kind of got into at a certain point, there are about 20 characters that I have started designing that are just characters in that world. They're pirates, spice runners, slavers. One of them is a slaver. That's a little bit of a touchy one, but he's got his own little fun story where it turns out he was a slave at one point, but he actually owns the detonator to the bomb that was put in his body.
You said these thieves and pirates. You said you have 20 of these characters.
Yeah.
Are these the characters that you'll meet under? What was her name again? The
Maz-Kanata.
Maz-Kanata, yes.
Yeah, now these are just characters that no matter what you go and do in the game, there's going to be other factions you can join, but these are characters that in some way or another, you're going to run across almost every one of these characters through the main stories of the game. And when you run into them, like I said, now typically they're going to be characters that maybe you've got the option to kill, or even the commission to kill, but they're going to be characters that have their own little story, and they absolutely are going to play a big part because you have the option to let them join your crew. And then once you let them join your crew, they're basically like a playable character for you. And so what they're about and what their stories are is somewhat important. There's definitely, I don't know if I could cover all that in one cast, but we can kind of get into what the little backstories of all my little I don't know, Cretans and minions of the dark underbelly of the Star Wars universe are about, and then also get into the wrap up of the game. Yeah, because the wrap up is like, that's the big gem. That's like, what you
climax.
Yeah, that's
obviously.
But then what I think people will really like about the game is hopefully will be all these little stories of all these little characters that you can meet,
missions.
throughout each time you play. I think that's a successful discussion.
All right. Well, thank you for diving into A Vat of Acid with us. We've had a very constructive hour and 40 minutes.
Ooh.
So it's thank you. If you've been listening this whole time, you are a real trooper, and we appreciate it. Let your friends know if you know anyone else that enjoys the Star Wars universe. And this is it for us tonight. This is Danny and Ryan signing out of A Vat of Acid.